everybody. First off, I want to thank everyone that's been watching this tutorial. I'm getting a lot of response back, a lot of emails. Some guys and girls have been emailing me, asking me questions, kind of getting more detail about the process of making a hollow wood surfboard. I really appreciate everyone that's watching the videos, and I really hope your projects are turning out good. So if you watch till the end of the video, I'm going to have a link to a couple more playlists. A new one that I'm going to be putting up is how to get this fin template, off the line. I've been looking on YouTube and I see a lot of videos on how to kind of glass the fins, but nobody's giving any detail on how to shape these fins and what it means. So what I've been doing is I've been essentially hacking them off a line, and I'll show you how to do that in the next video. One of the questions that we had was on shaping the rails, and that seems to be the most looked at, watched video that I have in the whole series, is the rails. Now, on the video, you can see how we lay them up along the edge. There's a few different rails, the rail designs. The one that I use is the template is the rib template's actually curved to the shape of the rail, and then you wrap 1/4-inch strips all the way around the rail. So essentially you have a rough shape already of that rail. The template that you buy online will be the rail shape that you're going to want to use. So that's how I do it. Some guys will buy templates and the ribs will be cut off square. And when they're cut off square, then what they'll do is they'll wrap wide strips all the way around the board and essentially build up a block of wood, and then you have to shape the entire rail. The reason I don't like that is it's a lot more shaping of the rail. If you're not real familiar with rail design, it can start getting a little complicated, and the weight. I think having a solid built-up rail like that, you're going to add so much weight in one of these boards, which are typically a little heavier than a regular board. Now, the system that I use is a little bit more time-consuming, laying it up, and you have to be patient and lay it up. It's not as fast as just laying strips down on the board. So you lay them up one at a time. You got to clamp them and wait. But when you go to the shaping process, it's just so much easier, and the product, I think, comes out a lot better. So let's start off here with what you're going to need to shape these rails. You're going to need a sanding block, some sandpaper. I like to use 60 grit, 80 grit, and then 100, 120 grit to get it down. I'll sometimes use one of these sponge sanders. You'll find them in the drywall department. You can buy them at different grits. Maybe a 60 grit, probably an 80 grit. I'd say an 80 grit on something like that. Sometimes they have different grits on each side. A miniature hand plane. I like to use the small one. It takes off a lot less wood when you're using it. It's easier to control. It doesn't seem to gouge as much. So I like using that mini hand plane. I think it's called a thumb plane. And once you get into your second board and you want to go a little faster, of course, an orbital sander. You can't beat an orbital sander with different grits paper. But you got to be careful with the power tools. If you're using power tools on this thing, you got to keep them moving. If you don't keep them moving, they're gonna put divots in your rails, and you don't want that. So I'd suggest starting off with your basic hand tools, and you'll actually get a better feel of the board. You'll actually kind of get to know the board a little bit better if you're using the hand tools. This is a mini Simmons I built. It's already done. I don't have any projects in the works right now, so I can't show you actually how to do it, but this is going to give you a good idea. The 1/4-inch strips are going to be laid up, and when they lay up, they're going to kind of overlap each other, and they're going to be uneven, and when they come around the edges, they're not going to look perfect. But you got to remember, you have a 1/4 inch of meat there. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to come through with this hand plane and you're going to knock the tips off of the wood where the two meet, because they're going to be meeting like this, and there's going to be a tip there. So you're going to knock each tip off, and once you start knocking these tips off, you'll start seeing this rail shape. It'll start shaping and coming around. The top's going to be overlapping the rail bands. Same thing, you're going to just want to start knocking those tips off with this, and bring everything together nice and smooth. As you start knocking them off easy, they'll start rounding out, smoothing out. On the bottom of the board, if you remember, you're going to have a chine rail. You're going to have your rail bands that are going to come around, and you're also going to have the bottom that's going to come up. So you got to remember that the wood right along this bottom edge is nice and thick. You've got plenty of wood there to kind of give yourself a shape around the bottom. So I usually do a 80-20 rail, meaning about 80% of the rail on the top and then a 20 on the bottom. So it's kind of a hard rail. Some people will have a shape, it'll be a 50-50 rail, or a 60-40 rail, which is a little bit of a softer rail. So let's say I'm doing an 80-20. I've got all that meat. So you're going to come where the bottom planks overlap this chine rail and this side rail, tons of meat there, and you're going to knock that thing off, I'd say, nearly a 45-degree angle, or whatever your rail design is going to be. Just knock that thing off. When you knock that meat off, then you're going to come and knock the little tip off that's left over, and you're going to do the same thing on the bottom. And you're just going to start knocking those off and make them nice and smooth. The sense of touch and your vision are really sensitive to change and flaws and difference. As I get these edges knocked down, one thing I always do is always feel the rails. I feel them, I look at them, I get to know the board. It might sound silly, but it really helps. You can feel every imperfection. You'll feel that this side might have a little dent in it, this side's a little too fat. You may need to take just a little bit more off. And I would say you can feel just a millimeter, a micro millimeter of imperfection in the board with your hands, right? So feel those rails. Get a nice stand. Set your board up as you're trimming down. Watch for splinters, but as you're trimming down with your plane, right? Come back, start feeling that rail edge. You'll feel it. You'll feel if it dips in. Use your eye. The eye is super sensitive. So look at that rail, lift it up, and then follow that rail all the way down. So the combination between your eyes and your hands is gonna really be your precision tool that you're gonna use. I don't think you could find a tool that's more sensitive than your eyes and your hands, and people don't trust them enough, but it really works. Like I say, then you really get to know your board. You start thinking about how the water flows over this board, what you need to do. So as you're working, once you get all those edges nipped off, then you're going to start wanting to fine tune this thing. Depending on your rail design, like this mini Simmons, I've got a hard rail from the back, probably 10 inches up. And then that hard rail starts tucking under, and then it starts feathering out. And then it stays that 80-20 all the way to the nose. Some of them will have a hard rail a little closer to the back. Some will bring that hard rail up different, and each rail design is going to give you a different performance, a different feel. This hard edge is going to let that water release off. A 50-50 is going to really hold tight into the wave, but it's going to be hard to kind of turn around, but it's going to suck into the wave. Like you got a 50-50 rail, it'll pull into the wave this way. So there's a balance of what you want, what kind of performance you want. So there's a lot of stuff online. I always use Sway Locks. It's a discussion group. You can always look. There's everything you need to know about rail design, fin design, board design. You can study it all day long, and it's just up to you what you want. Just give it a shot and experiment and have faith in yourself the way this thing's going to work. So once you get everything kind of roughed off with the hand plane, you're going to come in with a block sander. I like to use 60 grit to start, right? I'm not going to put this on the board because this is my finished board, but you're going to use this 60 grit, and you're going to come and you're going to sand it, right? And you're just going to start smoothing those edges out, and you'll see them. They'll start kind of rounding out, and that's what you want to do. You want to round these edges out, knock all the imperfections off with this 60 grit. Bring it around to the top, same thing, bring it all the way around, and just take your time on it. You'll see it start coming together. It's important to have your hard rails match on each side. You kind of want you want your whole dimension to be the same on each side, and that's where that feeling that board comes in. So once you get your 80 grit, come back with 60 grit. Now when I start using my 60 grit, I don't use a block plane because a block plane will actually put some flat edges on it, and you'll see them. That's fine. Now you're going to start sanding off with 60 grit. You'll start sanding all this down, and you're going to put your hand, the hand will wrap around that rail, just like that. Start sanding that rail down. Everything will start coming together. Right now it's starting to look like a board. You realize that you didn't make as big a mistake as you thought you did, because it always looks rough when you start. Have faith, it's going to turn out good. So just keep sanding that thing down. 60 grit, then you're going to switch over to your 80, your 120. You're going to get everything smooth. I like to use these. These things really start, you can really get a nice job on that wood with this. And this is where you come down to some fine sanding. You can get a really fine sponge and get this thing down, fine sand. You're going to do that the whole board, all the rails, follow that all the way up to the nose, get the deck smoothed out. I always finish with the 120 grit sandpaper, dust it all off real good, and you're ready to glass. So I hope this answers some of y'all's questions. Like I said, the rails are the most questioned part of my series. It's the most watched video. I got people who know how to build a board but just can't figure out what rail design they want to use. So hopefully this answered your questions. And if you have any more, just put them in the comment below. Subscribe, share, donate, whatever. But I appreciate y'all watching. Thanks.